which is on. If you don't have anything to fly, you don't have any weapons to shoot, you're not going to be very effective either. So it's my privilege to introduce Brigadier General Thomas Todd, the Army Program Executive Officer for Aviation, and we'll talk about the equipping portion.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. How's everybody doing? Hanging in there? All right. Well, it's good to be back. I've been coming to Quad A for an awfully long time, and certainly it's great to see the Aviation Enterprise still as tight as it ever was, maybe even tighter and more coordinated. So, General Gabram, certainly thanks for those comments. General Gaylor, sir, thanks for your leadership. I replaced Major General Bob Marion, who's obviously moved on to bigger and better things. I'm very thankful that he did. It allows us an opportunity to come back to an organization that, quite frankly, I've grown up in. I've been at Redstone on and off, moved away 4 separate times since 1997. So it's really great to be back. Never certainly thought I would be here, but glad to give you an overview of what we're going to deliver and what we're going to execute on behalf of the branch's priorities. Next slide. So really, the takeaway from this slide is nothing more than our mission statement, which essentially says that we will design, develop, and deliver against Army priorities. That's ultimately our core mission. If we do it correctly, you end up with F-model Chinooks, you end up with Mike model Blackhawks, you end up with Lakota helicopters, you end up with Gray Eagles, you end up with Echo model Apaches. And so I will tell you that that is largely a result of the team effort that we have in the enterprise. Certainly glad to be part of that and glad to have a workforce that's dedicated towards executing that. However, in the bottom left-hand corner of the slide, you see kind of the distribution of other dollars. Our 3,000 plus strong workforce essentially has over 50% of the dollars we get are other than Army. So it's sometimes very difficult to take those missions on, but we take them on gladly because what it does yield for us inside the Army is additional capabilities partnering with other agencies and other countries. Next slide. This is the organization that we have. It's very similar to what you've seen in the past. There's not a whole lot of change there other than the faces maybe. Really, we have 8 dedicated PMs that are there organized around essentially platforms, around the cabs and around those capabilities that the cab commanders expect to bring to the warfight. We also have AS, which handles a lot of our network communications, navigations type commitments, as well as fixed wing outside the cab and non-standard rotary wing, which really gets at some one-off type fleets. I just left a meeting with the Afghanistan Air Force, CSTICA, TAC Air, and we talked extensively about those platforms that reside in that portfolio. Additionally, we have a great set of staff on the left-hand side, as you see, and many of them you already know. Next slide. The Aviation Enterprise is massive, if you really think about it. The six-pack leads it, but the Aviation Enterprise really encompasses quite a few people. And many times we get requirements or we work with other PEOs, we work with other labs, we work with other partners. So I just put this up here so you know that we're part of a very large ecosystem that really is proud to yield the effects that you desire out of your material solutions. It's a real teaming effort. So if you're part of any of these organizations, first of all, I want to say thank you. It means a lot to us that we work together and really create what is total solutions that the cab commanders and commanders on the battlefield expect. Next. So I will just show you briefly as we go through kind of the near, mid, and far against the priorities that we've been given, really where we're heading, and this is how I'll do that. Next slide. In the near, maintaining obviously readiness as we've talked to, and again, I'm only going to talk to you about some of the programs that we have of the 100 plus programs that we manage in PO Aviation. But H-64 Echoes, obviously UH-60 Mikes, CH-47Fs is one of the prime directives that we get from General Gaylor, the branch chief, to make sure that we have new platforms flowing into your formation and fielded at the place in choosing of the Army. Sometimes people think that we choose where systems are fielded. The PEO does not choose where systems are fielded. We have the mission to field those systems, but the Army writ large chooses that. Additionally, Gray Eagle and the enhancements that we're making to those, and what we consider our BORS program, which is closely tied with DVEPS and TAPO. Next. So in regards to specifically delivering those platforms, we're very proud of our partnerships with certainly Army Contracting Command and ACC Redstone aligned with AMCOM. We have a great partnership in making contracts happen, and we do it every day. I want to thank our partners in industry in this regard. As you know, this is a very difficult task to put major contracts in place. You can see some of those numbers there, roughly 215 Chinooks is really what's on our current multi-year for the Block 1, what is now termed the Block 1F model. A few more than that Apaches, about 450 on the newly minted Apache multi-year. We're certainly thankful for our partners there at Boeing in both of those. And then on Black Hawk with Sikorsky, Lockheed Sikorsky, certainly thankful for the ongoing efforts to finish another multi-year, which will put roughly 360 Mike models on contract and make them available to both us and our partners. Next slide. So a little bit, and still in the near category in maintaining readiness. We're getting at some of our issues. The Army made a conscious decision several years ago to put Gray Eagle forward as soon as possible. We did that. This is one of those great programs that really came about through a lot of help and ingenuity through the special operations aviation community that we adopted and ended up really fielding at the point of need, at the time of need. We're continuing to work on increasing reliability of that platform and increasing endurance, as you can see there in the extended range Gray Eagle. It's one of the most kinetic platforms on the battlefield today, so obviously payload is tremendously critical, and we will continue to drive that forward against Army priorities. Next slide. Another great teaming relationship. I won't spend too much time on this. General Gabram talked to this specifically, and this is the enhanced phase maintenance program that was developed with his team, with Aviation Engineering Directorate. One of the things I will say is this is a direct result of condition-based maintenance. Many times people don't find the value in what do the systems that we put out inside the cab that monitor things like oil cooler fans on Blackhawks yield. Well, what it does yield, it yields data for our Airworthiness Authority, which really is in the business of helping us manage the risks. And it helps us analyze that data so that we can have confidence that when we move a TBO out, it's not going to break. It's not going to cause you unscheduled maintenance time. I can tell you it resonates with me because my former brigade commander, Colonel Joe Esses was here last night. Cash Striplin, my former squadron commander, may still be here. I was their maintenance officer. And I know what it means to maintain early on Alpha model Apaches that are not the same configuration and that run into unscheduled maintenance. So what we did not want to do with this is we did not want to induce problems by moving those TBOs right. So I think it's a really, quite frankly, a great good news story, not just operationally, but we're managing risk. We're trying to help you manage risk. And this is one of the fantastic examples of what I think the community at Redstone and Fort Rucker and DC and Fort Eustis, et cetera, the enterprise writ large really has done to bring you additional capabilities. Next slide. Okay, so as we kind of move, so those are just a few of the things based really against the branch chief's priorities in the near. As we move to the mid time frame, looking at bridging the gap, there are some things that we're doing to really, when I talked to you earlier about what our mission is, design, develop, and deliver. We just talked to you about the deliver piece. Now we're going to talk to you about the develop piece. And many of these programs fall in that category. You already heard a little bit about the middle one, the Victor program from General Gabram. I'll talk to you a little bit more about ITEP, Victor, and then also Chinook Block 2 and what that'll bring to the commander on the battlefield. Next slide. Improved turbine engine program. So one of the misnomers and myths that we have permeating is that we do not do successful technology transition programs. My former job was the Deputy Commanding General of RDECOM, the Science and Technology Command. Before I did that, I was what is Billy Jackson now, Utility Helicopters PM. And ultimately, this was a S&T program in MRDEC. In MRDEC. It was called the Advanced Affordable Turbine Engine Program. It set goals, which are different than requirements, which are a little bit broader. Let's kind of see what we can do. And it achieved some of those goals. Some of those goals it fell short of because they were quite aggressive. However, what it did do is it informed our branch on the art of the possible. And then our branch was able to go forward and make a decision on, okay, do we want to continue to carry this forward? What will it do for us? And is it worth the precious resources that we have in our portfolio? Because quite frankly, we don't have a whole lot of resources in our portfolio compared to where we were 5 or 6 years ago. I would argue that you need a 3,000 shaft horsepower engine, and I'll show you why in just a minute. We have a 3,400 shaft horsepower transmission on the Blackhawk. At sea level, 2,000 shaft horsepower engines can fill that transmission. Full of horsepower, can maximize its capability. At 4K95, they cannot. At 6K95, they definitely cannot. The transmission is not altitude sensitive. The engine is. So what did we need to do? We needed to create a full 3,400 shaft horsepower that we can fill that transmission with at high, hot, heavy conditions so that you can then take the squad, take whatever you need to do, and put it on target in an efficient manner and achieve your goals as a commander on the battlefield. So that's why a 3,000 shaft horsepower engine is tremendously important. That's a 3,000 shaft horsepower sea level engine, which ultimately yields a little bit less as it goes up in altitude because of air density, but it will fill that transmission now and allow us to use that capability on both the Apache and the Blackhawk to carry full mission loads. Next slide. This is that chart I told you that I would show you. It's TRADOC's chart. This is not my analysis. Despite what some people would like to say, in general, PMs and PEOs aren't out there doing anything other than executing the mission we've been handed. Now, the analysis comes from independent organizations, whether it be cost, whether it be mission utility, and this is one that shows mission utility. I'll just briefly summarize for you. General Gaylor in his discussion or his talk said he wants to be able to move an entire BCT in a period of darkness. And he wants to be able to move in one lift. So this particular operational vignette conducted by TRAC and AMSA shows us that a comparison at 6K95 of what you could do with a Blackhawk, 10 Blackhawks, 4 Apaches, and 1 medevac, what it can do today with the current capability that we have, and this is because we've grown, quite frankly, a lot of mission equipment packages. They're for survivability and they're necessary. But what we can do now, instead of 2 turns or 3 turns, we can do it in 1. We can take 130 soldiers, 225 kilometers, using 10 aircraft, 10 Blackhawks, 6 Apaches, without a fart. And that's what happens when you operationalize a capability that came out of science and technology. You put it on a platform. This engine potentially will achieve 13% fuel savings, SFC fuel savings. However, the real savings for the operational commander, when you operationalize it for us and the acquisition community trying to understand how you want to fight the system, is it delivers it in 130 troops in 67 minutes across 225 kilometers of ice, 3 hours and 20 minutes. That's significant. That's way better than 13%. That's way better than another 1,000 shaft horsepower. So the real utility of our material solutions that we're working on for you really drive to whatever vignette you want to employ them in and how you want to fight them on the battlefield. Additionally, it uses about 4,000 gallons of fuel versus 14,000 gallons of fuel. So again, much better than 13%. So we've got to keep it kind of out of if you will, what my community wants to drive it to sometimes, which is programs of record talk and acquisition speak, because that's kind of how we do our business, but that's not what we do. What we do is we help you conduct missions. We support the operational units on the battlefield. Next slide. The Victor program, General Gaber mentioned this. Those are the communities he talked about that are teaming together to make this happen. To be quite honest with you, a third of our Black Hawk fleet was destined to remain analog if we didn't get creative with very few dollars on hand. And this is really the solution we came up with. As he said, will be applied at Corpus Christi Army Depot on the back of the recap program. So it's a really great win, I think, all around, that we'll be able to finish out the digitization of the Black Hawk fleet. Next slide. And last, kind of in the mid-range, the Block 2 Chinook. Rob Berry's in here. He's our PM. Successfully achieved Milestone B, which is acquisition speak, basically for start developing. Boeing is flying those blades right now. We'll begin testing. Ultimately, what we're going to do is we're going to return commander's payload to the commander. So the newer F models really, as with all our machine frames, really ended up with a little bit heavier airframe. This airfoil brings that back, roughly 1,400 to 1,500 pounds of payload. It creates many efficiencies for the air crews. We'll have some single fuel cells. It'll make us much more common with the G, which is always a good thing, where we can be common on the battlefield. And then obviously we've got a whole new really drivetrain where we're taking advantage of a new type of metal to allow us to go really from 50,000 to 54,000 max gross weight across the Green Army. Next slide. And lastly, what I'll talk to you about, and I'll try to make sure I get off the stage on time, because I know John Evans, as always, has a great presentation for you. You know, many people want to talk about this. They want to jump straight to the design. That's why I didn't jump there, because I want you to understand what we're doing each and every day to make sure we're delivering capabilities today, and that we're preparing to deliver capabilities for tomorrow. The design phase is, for an engineer, a very exciting time. It's an exciting time for us to explore, both with our great industry partners as a branch, to conceptualize and see exactly where we want to go. So as the branch looks at and makes decisions on what they want to do, we are partnering heavily with the science and technology community to obviously conduct demonstrations. The Joint Multi-Role Rotorcraft demonstration, the JMR, which you may have seen one of the competitors here or another of the competitors here, is scheduled to begin flying later this year. We're excited about that because for the first time we're going to see some really unique technologies. We're going to be able to evaluate them, take data from them, help inform what TRADOC is leading right now, which is the analysis of alternatives, and help the Army make a really great decision on not only what the art of the possible is, but what's the right fit for the mission that we have to achieve. I think it's great that things can be achieved, but if it doesn't fit the missions that we're handed, quite frankly, that's a whole lot of money spent on some area that we're not going to use. So that's the one thing we don't want to do in acquisition. As we understand commander's intent, how you want to fight the system, we'll work our way back into the engineering piece and make that happen, make that a reality. So the two pieces I'll talk to you about today are Future Vertical Lift and Future Tactical UAS. One of them, well, both of them really right now reside outside of my portfolio. They're in the science and technology and kind of the TRADOC realm, both those realms right now. So next slide, we'll go to Future Vertical Lift first. Future Vertical Lift, right now, TRADOC is looking at the AOA, looking at the different cape sets, and certainly I'm not the one to really talk to you about that, but I did want to tee this up just so that you know that we are readying ourselves as PO Aviation. We've already conducted an MDD in order to be able to spend money, provided the CR is resolved, and we will be able to move forward helping that AOA, funding that AOA, as it analyzes not only the tech demonstrators that will fly this upcoming year, but also other technologies, other options that are out there that are available. One being obviously stay with what we've got. So we're going to help that study. We're going to make sure that we're ready when it concludes to execute a program of record if that's the Army is so choosing. Next slide. And lastly, future tactical UAS, a little bit further back in the S&T cycle right now. Really, I won't call it in the think tank arena, but as, really as we as an enterprise look at, what the art of the possible is, this is one of those things that probably a tech demonstrator is applicable for again. The last thing that we want to do is to, I would argue, buy a weapon system or begin to develop a weapon system or deliver a weapon system before you've somewhat kicked the tires on what you're going to buy. And resources sometimes drive us to that. But where we can, what we want to do is we want to work with our partners in the S&T community, and this is one of the areas they're working in right now, to really see, as we develop the next manned platform, what does the next unmanned platform do in both teaming, in ISR, in RISTA, in traditional missions. I will tell you that much of what came out of my time in S&T was that we're not just going to have manned-unmanned teaming, we're going to have AI, and we're also going to have autonomous manned-unmanned teaming. There's going to be quite a bit of things that happen that we don't have to command, that we just take input from and are able to make decisions from. So our job as a material developer is to figure out how we can do that for you and ultimately get you what you need when you tell us it looks like something that you want. So with that said, I will go ahead to the next slide. I will get off the stage. I will turn it over to my partner in crime, John Evans. But I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one of you. If I haven't seen you already, certainly I don't come here to see you. You see me on a regular basis, as my meeting engagements are with industry on a regular basis. So I want to thank industry first and foremost for what you do. Yes, we don't always have all the dollars we would like to have. We don't always have, really priorities aligned with you on everything that you're doing. But I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure anybody does it better than this community. I've seen a lot of different communities, both in industry and other services, and I'm extremely proud of the teaming arrangements that we have, both internal to the United States Army and also the entire material enterprise. So it's an honor to be back. I look forward to seeing you again each year, as however long I'm here, as however long they'll have me. And again, we at PU Aviation really say one thing, and that is one team, and we mean it, and we're glad to serve. Cool. Thanks so much.
Thanks, General Todd.